Good morning, everyone. It's Dan Campbell with Texas Open Door Realty. Welcome to another edition of The Happy Homeowner. I've got my friend John Sirizzotti with me today. He is the proprietor of Remedy Roofing here in the Austin area. I met John a few years ago. We were in a networking group together, and immediately I was impressed with their company and with their work. And so when we talk about roofing issues, or when I need roofing questions answered, or I need a good roofer for my clients, I always recommend John. So I thought, wow, this is a great time of the year to have him come on and talk about roofing issues. And so, John, one of the questions that we hear a lot is, why do I need, or do I need to maintenance my roof? And most people don't even think about their roofs unless there's a big hailstorm or something. But really, we should think about our roofs once in a while.
Usually we don't hear from anybody until they have an issue, which is typical. And roofs generally don't need a lot of maintenance, but once roofs get to be about 10 years old, they should be looked at, make sure everything's sealed and there's no leaking going on. There may be a small leak going on that you don't know about. But generally about every 10 years, you should have your roof looked at, depending on the type of roof that you have, as a general rule.
Okay. So if I give you a call, then what does the typical maintenance call look like for you? What do you do?
Well, we're going to get up there and take a look at it and make sure that all the pipes are sealed. That's generally where you're going to find your first leak, that everything's caulked, that there's no missing shingles. Generally, if a homeowner knows they have an issue on their roof, they can see it because there's a missing shingle or a leak of some sort. But again, after about 10 years, we should take a look at them and make sure that there's nothing that's down the horizon for them.
Okay. What does it cost for me to have you come out and look at my roof?
Nobody should ever charge you to come take a look at your roof. It should always be a free inspection. If they're a reputable company, they're going to want to try to gain your allegiance, gain you as in their coffers, so to speak.
Okay.
I never charge anybody to go and inspect their roof.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's good information. So I noticed the other day on my roof that's been up for about 10 years now, there's some streaking beginning to develop on the shingles. I don't know how to describe it, but it looks like there's just some dark streaks that are going down the roof. So should I be concerned about that?
That's molding. That's typically going to be an indication that your roof is at least 10 to 15 years old, depending on what type of shingle you used. They have some products out now that claim to clean the streaks, but nothing that's been on the market a long time, nothing that I use. Usually you just deal with those and replace. Usually a roof will be replaced in this region before that happens. If you're lucky enough to have a roof long enough to have those streaks, it's not anything that's going to cause any major damage. It's strictly aesthetics.
Okay, it's aesthetics, so not to be concerned. That's good to know. So I'm in the real estate business, as you know, and a common occurrence for us is we'll have a home inspector go out and look at a roof, and he will say, there's missing shingles on your roof. And so we see that a lot. So is it a big deal to have missing shingles on your roof?
It's not a big deal. Shingles can be repaired. If they're missing, they can be easily replaced. It is an indication that your roof is getting older typically. It could be, if you have a lightweight shingle and you're a 2-story house and you're not sheltered from the wind, we do get some windstorms that can, cause some lifting. So it can be a concern. Generally, it's a fairly easy repair. If you ever do see any house that has any missing shingles, those should be addressed immediately and examined to make sure there's nothing else going on with it.
Okay.
But we see it typically when we get some high winds. It's not the end of the world. It can be repaired.
Okay, so now every single time we have a windstorm, does that mean that my shingles are going to blow off my roof?
Well, again, if a shingle does blow off your roof, you're going to see it. That's something that's visible to homeowners because obviously the shingle will come down. You can look up there and see that it's missing generally. It's a concern. It needs to be addressed. That's when a good time to call your roofer or myself and have them come out and take a look, replace those shingles and examine the rest of it to make sure there's nothing else going on with it.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that, like for my roof, I have to pretty much get in my neighbor's yard to be able to see the side of my shingles because my roof's real tall. But it sounds like I should be doing that after storms and maybe, taking some binoculars if I can't see. My eyesight's not that great and my shingles kind of blend together. but I should be visibly looking at my shingles after a storm, it sounds like.
You know, in some cases, yes. Not typically. The shingles are fairly heavy, and even though the wind will blow them off, generally they'll fall into your yard. So if you see a shingle in your yard, that's the time to call me. Typically, a lot of times your neighbors will let you know. If you can't see it, your neighbors can see it from their bathroom or something, and they may let you know. And then in some instances, like you're talking about, you may have to go around the corner and just take note of it and take a peek at it, and if you see anything suspicious going on up there. But generally those shingles will stay in your yard.
Okay. Another thing we run into a lot is our trees are growing over our roofs. So let's talk about trees. Should I be concerned if trees are brushing on the top of
Absolutely.
my roof?
Tree damage is something that we see very regularly. I see it every day, and I tell everybody to keep the trees off of your roof. Even though that tree limb may be 5 or 6 feet away from your roof, when the winds come, they will bounce those branches. And they will cause what we call tree rub and cause damage to that roof. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a limb break and come through a roof, and in some cases come into a bedroom, depending on, it's a good idea to keep your tree limbs off of your roof. If you've got any major tree limbs growing over onto your roof, those really, in my opinion, should be taken off. You never want those trees growing over your roof. I've seen them come through too many times.
Wow, that's good advice. So how far away if I don't have giant branches over my roof, but I have smaller branches, how far away should I have my tree guy cut them away from the roof?
You know, the more you grow it, I'm not an arborist, but the more you cut a tree, the more they want to grow. And I see this a lot as well. People will trim them back, but then they'll grow back with a vengeance, and they'll just barely get them off of the roof. So if you're going to spend the money to get your trees backed off of your roof, get them back off of your roof. Get them back a few feet, because they're going to grow very quickly. Once you trim a tree, they're going to want to grow. And I see this a lot too. You'll trim them back just barely, and then they're going to grow back with a vengeance. So get them cut back a decent amount. When you go through the time, effort, or expense to have that done, get them back off of your roof.
Another question related to trees is leaves in our gutters, in our rain gutters. So it's another thing that comes up on inspections a lot, that our gutters are full of leaves and debris. Is that something that we should care about related to our roof?
Well, you know, you should always have your gutters cleaned out regularly. It's a chore that some people can handle, and sometimes it's not so easy. If it's a 2-story house or something, they do have some gutter guards that perform some relief for you, but those are not 100% maintenance free. You can buy some of the gutter shields, and they're very, very expensive and not very heavy duty, but they're expensive. So, you know, as a general rule, once a year you should get up there and clean out your gutters. It can cause some backflow up over the ridge. It doesn't typically happen, but if you know you're in an area, and you'll know if you're in an area that has that issue, then just maintain it. Do your due diligence once or twice a year, depending on where you live.
Okay, that's good advice. So another thing we see very commonly in my industry is when a house is inspected by an inspector, they will report that there is indication of possible wind and or hail damage. Recommend inspection by a roofer. And so when we get that, and I call you, or the homeowner calls their inspector or their roofer, what do you do? What should we do about that to solidify the integrity of the roof?
Well, the first thing is we'll examine the roof. You know, just because there's a hailstorm doesn't mean it's time to replace your roof. Now, roofs have gotten to be very, very expensive. And especially in real estate transactions, a lot of folks, especially if they're the buyer, they're concerned that, hey, how much life do I have in this roof? It's an expensive roof. Not too many roofs in this region are ever paid for out of pocket. Generally, most folks can wait till they get a hailstorm that will knock their roof into a spot where it's going to be covered by the insurance, and they get a new roof. And so that's in a real estate transaction, that's generally what I'm looking at. Is your roof good enough to get you through to the next hailstorm, whether that be in next year or 5 years? So we may have to do some maintenance to it, reseal everything, check the pipes, and do the maintenance. But when roofs get to be a little bit older, they become a red flag in real estate transactions.
For sure.
So, most roofers are going to tell you, "Oh, yeah, you need a new roof." That's not always the case.
Okay.
Have somebody take a look at it and get to a point where both parties are at a point where they think that they can live with it.
Okay. Case in point, the other day you looked at a roof for me that my client who's getting ready to list their house had their roofer look at. Their roofer had recommended a roof replacement, and I told the client we'd had an inspection done. I said, let me get my roofer to look at it, and thank goodness you looked at it and basically said, no, that's not necessary right now. Again, exactly what you just said. That's what you told these people, that you felt good about the integrity of the roof, that it should make it till the next big hailstorm.
You call a lot of roofers and they're going to just cross their fingers and then an adjuster might pay for it.
Okay.
And roofs are so expensive now. The insurance companies have gotten a little bit tighter.
Okay.
And if I really feel in my heart of hearts that the roof still has has some value left to it, and there's not enough to, I like slam dunks, Dan. When I call the insurance out, I want to know that they're going to pay for it, because then it can open up a lot of other possibilities where people start, being concerned about other things.
Okay.
If the roof still has some value, you can generally do that maintenance to it, and we're going to get another hailstorm in this region at some point.
Okay.
Again, just because we have a hailstorm doesn't mean it's time to replace that roof. On the one end, particularly, if you're going to list a house, definitely, and your roof is at least 10 years old, have me come or somebody come take a look at it. Do that maintenance, take a look at things, pretty it up a little bit, maybe even paint the vents if they're getting old so that you can get ahead of it.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when these roofs get inspected after a buyer, one little thing that is worded in a particular way can make it look a whole lot worse than it actually is. So sometimes you can get ahead of that stuff and keep it off of the inspection report, which simplifies things in the end.
Okay. So I'm pretty old, and I remember years
welcome to the club.
years ago, it seemed like it was standard procedure that if you had a hailstorm, you just called your insurance company. But things have changed, at least since I've been in the real estate business. And so let's talk about, if you have a hailstorm, should the homeowner call their insurance first, or should they call someone like you to look at their roof first?
It's a very good question. And in all honesty, I would recommend that you call a reputable roofer first. Again, just because you have a hailstorm doesn't mean it's time to replace that roof. These shingles are designed to withstand some hail damage.
Okay.
Age is going to be a big factor. I like to look at every one of them before I recommend whether, if I feel it's time to replace it, then we'll recommend that you call your insurance and have them come out. A lot of times I'll look at them and just say, hey, we're fine. We had some minor little bit of damage on there. Again, they're designed to withstand some hail. You don't need a new roof every time there's a hailstorm, but they should be inspected after every hailstorm.
Okay.
And then we'll take a look at it. Older roofs in particular, because when somebody has an older roof, they really want to get a new roof. Now that's when we really want to make sure that they're going to get paid for it, because in an older roof, what can happen is they can come out and say, oh, well, this roof is really old, but that hail didn't do this damage to it. And so you may only have that one opportunity to get that insurance to pay for it, where they can look at it and say, this doesn't have a lot of damage on it from this particular storm. However, it's really old, and you'll get a letter a few months down the line, hey, change out your roof or we're going to drop you, and they can put you behind the 8 ball. So.
Wow.
Even in older roofs, they should be inspected first, because we want to make sure that it is a slam dunk, that the insurance will pay for it, because that may be your one and only opportunity to get them to pony up their end of it.
Got it. So that's why. So it sounds like to me that's why it's a good idea to call someone like you to look at it first, so you can know how to approach your insurance.
I recommend that highly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Wow, that's great advice. So the insurance adjuster comes out, looks at the roof. They didn't call a roofer ahead of time. Like you, to look at it, and the insurance company says, yeah, your roof needs to be replaced, and they recommend companies. Do we have to follow recommendations from the insurance company.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, most of the insurance companies don't recommend roofs because they don't want to recommend somebody that does a bad job and then you go back to them. They'd rather just pay you your money, you pick your guy, and they're out of that picture.
Okay.
That's your headache. Okay. What I will tell you is, on that note, laws have changed this year. For years and years and years, people had low deductibles and they would virtually get free roofs.
Okay.
Those days are gone. Property values are a lot higher. Insurance deductibles have gone up. They're no longer $500 or $1,000, and very rarely. It's usually a percentage of your property. If you have a 1% deductible, people have no idea what that means. What that means is you have 1% of what you have your home valued or insured for. If you have a $500,000 house and a 1% deductible, you have a $5,000 deductible.
Okay.
So again, you don't want to. You got skin in the game at this point.
Okay.
Just because we have a hailstorm doesn't mean it's time to replace it. Maybe we can get through it to another storm. You're no longer getting a free roof. It's going to cost you some money.
Okay.
Laws have been changed this year to where homeowners are responsible for their deductible. The state laws have changed to where they're going to start following up. You may have some roofers that'll be like, no, I'm going to cover this or that. If it gets checked on and they go back and do the banking and look back, they're going to start misdemeanors at this point, and they're going to try to change that to a felony at some point.
Wow.
So it's important that you know what your deductible is, and particularly if your roof is older, know what your skin in the game is. If your roof is 10 to 15 years old, you should look at your policy, make sure you know what your deductible is, because when we do get that hailstorm, you will be responsible for that deductible. Mm-hmm. Make sure it's something that you can handle.
Okay.
If it's really high and your roof is really old and you have an opportunity to buy that down, then that's probably going to make sense for you. If your roof is brand new, you may want to roll the dice a little bit, but always know, in my experience, a lot of people have no idea what their deductible is.
Okay.
You should always know what your deductible is.
So what I heard you say just then is insurance deductibles vary, and that will affect the premium price of your insurance. So if I have a newer house, or if I have a newer roof that has a really good shingle on it, I might roll the dice and go with a lower insurance premium and a higher deductible on the roof.
Always know that you're at a number that you can live with.
Got it.
I come across with some people that have 2 and 3% deductibles.
Wow.
Which, if you have a $500,000 house, that means you're basically paying for that roof.
Okay.
That's a $10,000 to $15,000 deductible. A lot of times people may have a 1% deductible on the dwelling and a 2% deductible on the roof. Roofs have gotten very, very expensive. In the 15 years I've been doing this, roofs are more than double.
Okay.
And really about 3 times as much, actually. So deductibles have come up. So always make sure you know that you're at a number that you can live with, because we're going to get a storm at some point and you will need a new roof.
All right.
So you have to be at a number you can live with.
Okay, last question for this. I have a less expensive, and a lot of these homes do have this type of shingle, less expensive 20-year shingle. How important is it for me to consider next time I replace my roof? The insurance is going to want to put the same shingle back on the roof. How important is it for me to consider paying more and getting a better shingle?
That's a very, very good question. And you have the 3-tab flat shingles, and then you have the architectural shingles. Roofing 101, and I tell this to people every day, you never, ever, ever want to put back on that 3-tab flat shingle.
Really?
The difference between that one and the architectural shingle is night and day, and it's really not that much more expensive. It is a little bit more expensive. The labor's the same, profit margins are the same. The only thing difference in the price is going to be the cost of that shingle.
Okay.
And it's not that bad. Bang for your buck, it's a no-brainer. Everybody wants those shingles because aesthetically they look better, but the real value in that shingle is weight. In particular, if you know you live in an area with high winds and you've had issues with wind and some missing shingles, in particular 2-story house, unsheltered houses, you want that heavy shingle on there. Bang for your buck, it's a no-brainer. Now, once you bite the bullet the first time on that, let's just say the insurance does pay for that roof, you'll have to pay that upgrade. which is not too big a pill in most cases.
Okay.
The next time there's a hailstorm, they'll pay for what you have.
Got it.
They're not going to pay for what you had. So if you bite that bullet one time, that's the last time you'll bite that bullet. But always go back with that architectural shingle. It's a huge difference in the value of that roof, and no-brainer as far as bang for your buck.
Okay. Wow, that's great advice. Well, listen, John, if one of my viewers wants to contact you, how do they do that?
You know what? I'm at John at Remedy Roofing, JOHN at Remedy Roofing, or you can contact me directly on my cell phone at 512-769-4729. If you have any questions, of course, call me. If you are having a concern, just give me a call. I'll come by and take a look at it. I never charge for an inspections. Inspections are always free. And no questions are bad questions, so call me anytime.
All right. Hey, John, thanks for being with us today on The Happy Homeowner. This is Dan Campbell with Texas Open Door. We'll see you next time.